You are not, as a general rule, taught how to be a lawyer in law school. You're taught how to think, and you're taught the law, and you're taught how to.
Welcome to Time We Discuss. Before we get started, I want to thank Mickey Mickelson for introducing me to our next guest. Let's meet Russell Little because it's time we discuss what it's like to be a trial attorney. Russell, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. And can I say, you have the most cheerful voice. It's like, I hope when someone's listening to this, it's in the morning when they're waking up because it'll give them a nice day.
I have to rethink when I drop these episodes. Typically, they're around noon. Maybe I should make them a little earlier.
Maybe just this one.
I can do that. I can make that happen. So, Russell, I've had a number of attorneys on the show. Have had Antti Kataguglia. He is a corporate attorney. I had Erica Silverman. She was an estate attorney. I had Christopher Stockwell, and he was a prosecutor.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. It absolutely was. So if anyone needs to see that, I'll put the link up here somewhere for them to check it out. As a trial attorney, what is a typical day like for you?
Part of being a trial attorney is in criminal law, representing the defendants against the prosecutors. And I did that for my full 41 years, that in divorce law. But being a trial attorney, when you're in trial, well, it even starts before that, because for weeks you're doing nothing but preparing for the trial. And once you're in trial, and sometimes these are trials last a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, no telling. When you're in trial, there is nothing else. You are not a husband, a father. You have no life except the trial. You're in battle. There's nothing else that matters. 24 hours a day. It's a total adrenaline rush.
We talk about trial attorneys. You mentioned a divorce attorney. Were you specifically working as a divorce attorney?
The last 20 years of the 41 years that I practiced in Houston was as a divorce lawyer. About halfway through my practice, I was like, I had tried car accident cases before that, some criminal law, and some workers' injury and representation of employees. And I was kind of bored. And I represented a couple people on divorces, and I found that I was really good at it because I wasn't affected by the huge emotions around me in court. And before the end of my practice, that's all I did, and I liked it. In fact, I missed the rush.
But let's hang with that for a second. So different types of law, I think, are going to be more, you're going to be more likely to experience that adrenaline rush than others. So when I was talking to Erica Silverman, for instance, she was talking about being an estate attorney, and she didn't really have a lot of those theatrics, I'm going to say. So from your experience, your opinion, what types of law when you're an attorney, what types of law are more common to have like those moments in court where you will get that adrenaline? I can't talk today. Where you will get that adrenaline.
You can say it. You can do this. I
Adrenaline.
believe in you, Dan.
When I was talking to Andy, I must have said his name about a half a dozen times prior to our recording just so I could get it right. I should
Right.
have done this with adrenaline.
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Okay. Do you want me to answer the question or you want to say it again?
No, I'm going to leave this in. This is fun. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I
Answer the
like it.
question.
I like it. I wanted you to leave it in. Okay. Uh, what capital murder cases? I actually, I interned one summer with a district attorney's office up in the panhandle of Texas. And they had a capital murder case in which three young men had murdered a police officer. And they had a transfer of venue to Galveston, which is that's as far away and still in Texas as Atlanta and Houston are away from each other. That's that far away. And so I was in charge of picking up witnesses from the airport, driving them to the courthouse. Then, after they testified, driving them back to the airport. And it was such a rush that everyone had their own bodyguard because we expected a shootout during the trial because there were so many rumors that there was going to be a rescue of the defendants. during the trial. So we all had our own. I had a bodyguard the whole summer. It was crazy. Only a certain type of human can be a capital murder lawyer, either on either side, district attorney or defense attorney. It's a certain type of person.
So let's hang on that for a second. If someone wants to pursue that line of law, what is the best way to get involved with that? Is it best to try to be a prosecutor or to open up your own firm as a criminal defense attorney? What is the best way to get into that?
Okay, but number one, you shouldn't get involved in that because it would destroy your life. There's nobody that is a great capital murder attorney is someone who stays married. You don't have families because remember how I described during being in trial? Well, think about that for 9 months or a year because those are how long those trials you get ready for them and then you try them. So it destroys your life. So it's best if you don't get involved in that. But if you do, if some bizarre reason you would want to, there are two good ways. For those few people that have the contacts to get it, it would be to get a job being the gopher for someone that already is one of those lawyers. That's the best way. I actually know a couple of lawyers in Houston, Texas that uh, started by doing that. Uh, Most lawyers that eventually acquire the ability to actually uh, try those kind of cases start off as lowly assistant district attorneys and work their way up until they've made enough contacts to join some other defense attorneys on the other side of the bar that gives them a heads up, and then you still haven't done it because you got to earn a reputation and you've got to work your life away to be capable enough to have a reputation strong enough to get those kind of cases.
You talked before about those trials last, they could last up to a year, maybe even longer. Let's talk about as a divorce attorney, how long do those cases typically last? I'm sure it's going to be like all over the map depending on different things, but generally speaking, how long do those last?
Okay, that's okay. This new subject is completely different than what we've just talked about. So,
I jump around a lot. I tend to just kind of go all over.
right, but I'm just saying, uh, it's those kind of trials. Number one, 99.99% of them collapse into a settlement before you get to trial. Okay, because number one, people can't afford the money, or number two, the emotions and the hysterics that your client and your opponent's client are going through is unbelievable, right? And number three, and if you use proper negotiating skills and game theory, I have found that I can walk into a mediation and by the end of the day, get my client more than I can win them at trial if they'll let me. Of course, in this kind of work, one of the biggest problems is getting your client to take yes as an answer because these are angry people. These are hurt people. And even when they get yes, sometimes as an answer to their demand, they can't take it. They don't understand it or they can't hear it. But if you get through all that and nothing's settled and it's a jury trial, a minimum family jury trial is a week because they they take so long to get started and the judge has other things so he lets you go early and at least in Texas judges have to get elected so that they don't want to make a jury panel too angry because those are voters, so they're very careful about that, about how long they keep them every day and that sort of thing. And sometimes they cut the trials off on Thursdays sometimes to make the jury happy about Friday. So um, they're almost always at a minimum a week, sometimes 10 days,
Okay, okay.
and that's the smaller ones.
Going back to other types of law, How has technology changed the landscape over the past 40 years? If you're doing a deposition, for instance, a lot of them can be, recorded. I'm assuming you can do them via some kind of platform, as opposed to, 40 years ago where you had to be in person. How has technology changed the landscape in the past 40 years?
I'm not 20 years old, right? I'm 67 years old. I have, through the evolution of technology in the courtroom, I have been in the courtroom. I remember there's a little bitty county outside Houston, Texas. And in fact, until about 10 years ago, still had dirt roads next to the courthouse. I'm saying it's that little, right? I remember when iPads were first coming out, and I actually wanted to use a document. I wanted to pull it up on my iPad and use it as evidence in the courtroom. And the judge freaked out. So let me tell you, the world, uh, and of course, we're way past that. But the at least the courts have been a resistant place for technology, but it's changed everything, right? Because now uh, everyone is pulled up, has their computer or their iPad while they're trying their cases. And that's where they're using their exhibits and that's where they're flashing their exhibits. And by the way, the most important thing about that, that's how a jury expects to see it now. And that's the most important thing because the jury, the battle for the minds and hearts of the jury is the nexus of the war that is called a trial. And in fact, when a jury panel, you pick 12 jurors from a jury panel. And I had a policy if people in the jury panel weren't laughing at my jokes while we were talking to them, I didn't pick them. I would not let you be on my jury if you didn't laugh at my jokes because that meant that we weren't bonding, right? We weren't connecting. And I didn't want any part of you on my jury.
But let's hang on that for a second. So concepts like that, is that something that you'd get taught in law school where it's like, hey, or this is just kind of like trial and error on your part? Talk to me about that.
Okay, you are not, as a general rule, taught how to be a lawyer in law school. You're taught how to think, and you're taught the law, and you're taught how to learn the law, but you're not taught how to be a lawyer. That's something you do after law school. In fact, there's several pejorative words used by lawyers for new young lawyers. And I used them all the time because it was called baby lawyer. I was a baby lawyer. Yeah, they're the worst things in the world. There's judges in Houston, Texas, that when they were baby lawyers, I was the first lawyer that they tried a case against. In fact, there's one woman judge when she tried her first case, which was against me. Her father, who was a very good friend of mine, called me up before the trial, a couple of days before the trial. Said, now you be nice to her, right? Don't you be mean to my daughter. It's her first trial. Don't you be mean. And he meant it, right? And I wasn't. I was very careful not to be mean because it's a family that I respect highly. Uh, but there's so many stories about it that you have to be connected. I once tried a case against one of my very best friends, but he was the lawyer on the other side, which lawyers can do. We can put our bitter battle, we can battle to the death, and at the same time be the closest of friends. But that's the way it is. And so I was trying this. It was it was a divorce jury trial. It lasted 10 days. You had that question. And when the jury panel came in, one of my neighbors was on the jury panel. And uh, it's the rules. I went to the judge and I had Bill come over. That was my friend and my death opponent. And I said, that's my neighbor. And Bill is a very stoic Norwegian type of guy. You can't see anything, and he has no sense of humor. I knew that guy for 40 years. He told one funny joke his whole life, and it was he asked that juror during voir dire. It's called voir dire, which is when the lawyers ask questions to the jury panel. And he asked that juror, he said, he said, "Do you know Mr. Little?" "Yes." "I understand he's your neighbor." "Yes." "Can you assure the court that you won't hold it against his client, that you know him so well?" Which was a funny way of asking. And of course, the whole jury panel laughed. And uh, I was very impressed with Bill that he could actually tell a funny joke, but that he tried to get the heads up on me by connecting with the jury by telling the joke. So I had to scramble. But I mean, that's the way it is.
That's awesome. I love that story. So
Yes. I won the trial, though we still argue about that to this day, who won, because it was a very confusing. Asked the jury a long set of questions. Some were answered to his benefit, some were answered to my benefit. Very confusing. So we still fight to this day about who won that trial.
So let's go back. You talked about working as a divorce attorney for the last 20 some years. So talk to me about that transition. I talked to some other attorneys. They talked about that could be kind of difficult. What was that transition like?
It was easy. How many type of careers can you have where when you hit the 7 year itch or the 10 year itch, and you're like, "Man, I've done the same darn thing. I'm sick of it." You can look around and say, "I'm doing that a while." So for the first 8 years, I did uh, I did car accidents and workers' comp trials. Well, you can only do that so long, and you're sick of it, right? Then I had a whole different career with that. I investigated arsons for insurance companies. That was a blast. I even one time, and I've written a story about it. I've even one time, someone I was investigating in Houston. In Houston, it's not called voodoo; it's called hoodoo, and they actually created a doll of me, and they were trying to commit hoodoo against me to keep me from finding out that they had burned their own house down. So I had a whole separate career of that. And then I started doing some criminal law, and that led to doing some family law. And I found out I was real good at it. So that's what I did for the last 21 years.
That's good to know. So it is possible. It is possible to kind of navigate the that side of the legal system and switch it up a little bit. That's good to know.
Yes, just don't be afraid. That's all you have to do. Don't be afraid. Embrace that which uh you're unaware of, but you can teach yourself.
You talked about writing a book. I know you're an author already, but let's hang on that for a second. Talk to me about either the book you just talked about or one of the other books that you have. What's going on for you right now as an author?
My first book was Murder for Me. It is a psycho crime thriller. The second book that came out last October is Murder by Storm, uh, which is the continuation of that battle. But I've ridden out like five hurricanes, right? And there are so many things that happen that you see or you experience in a hurricane that you can't believe. And unless you experienced it, you wouldn't believe it's real. Like a manhole blowing off and water spewing like a fountain for 2 stories. It's freaking unbelievable. Are people putting their life in danger to save complete strangers? Yeah, it's a life changing experience. And I wanted to write about it. And I thought, what better thing than to write about a murder thriller during a hurricane? So that's what it's about.
The backdrop of that is just very unusual. I absolutely love that. It's interesting. Back in oh geez, probably early 2000s, I was in Mexico during when Hurricane Emily struck, and we were on a resort, and they evacuated us, and it was like a Category 4, I think. But I didn't really get to experience it which is fine, because we were
Yeah, you
evacuated.
do not want to experience a hurricane. Okay, that's not a good thing. That when I say I wrote out five hurricanes, that's kind of stupidity.
Before you talked about being in law school, they teach you how to think, how to use the law, interpret the law, know the law, but not how to be a lawyer. So for any young attorneys out there or people that are just wrapping up law school, or maybe they're even in law school, what are some resources they could take advantage of to learn how to be a lawyer?
Resources is not what makes you a lawyer. You have to be into it. You have to experience. It's like reaching down. You don't know what the mud is like below you until you reach down and put your hand in it and squished it, and the mud's leap. Law's that way. You've got to experience it to become a real lawyer. If it's estate law or probate law, uh, then you've got to get into the work. If it's tax law, you've got to get into it. And there's the only two ways you can do it is if you have a mentor, you work for a firm that's teaching you and giving you the stuff, or and I've known some lawyers that don't, they just dive into it. They go down, they get their license, they go down, they get some court appointments, and off they go. That's how you, I mean, got to you you've got to get into the mud and squish it between your fingers before you can feel it.
I am running a little bit short on time, but also one thing I like to do whenever I'm speaking to someone, I'd like to give them the opportunity to talk about a project they're working on, a cause they believe in, more about your books or business. So whatever you'd like to discuss, the floor is yours.
I just want to promote my book, Murder by Storm, that we've talked about it because it's new. I'm pretty excited because it's the things that happened during the hurricane, uh, about how people risk their lives to help strangers. I think it's a real good sign because our world's pretty divided now. There's a lot of hate out there, and it's great to know that in times of emergency, people can pull together. I know that sounds stupid and naive, but I've seen it. It happens.
That reminds me, I was interviewing Cece Robinson. She is an author, and she started out in finance and ended up creating these medical facilities across the world. And that was one thing she talked about too, the struggles between humans with race and inequality and everything like that. And her goal is trying to make the world a better place through everything she's doing. So that kind of what you're saying kind of resonates with me as it resonated with her. That is really, really, really cool. And so true. Russell, it's been absolutely awesome having you on Time to Discuss, and we learned what it's like to be a trial attorney.
Thank you, Dan.